Hi, and welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight's episode, in part, discusses the topic of body image and eating disorders. Listener discretion is advised.
The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight, I have an acclaimed actress, producer, director, writer, musician, and activist that you've seen on some of the most iconic shows on television. And she's been on hundreds of films, shows, and stages all over her amazing career. And I was so lucky to have her on my show tonight. So please welcome Miss Lynn Chen. Thank you so much for joining us, Lynn.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we are too, and been looking forward to this. And I know you had some weather this week, so I'm glad we got past that. But, I just wanted to kind of start out because I know besides doing, the film work and the TV work, you're also a writer, and you have some really, I was on your website, and you have some really, really nice like newsletters and things that people can go to be inspired. And one of the things that really, really hit me was the actor's diet. Because I know, like in Hollywood, I know you have a monthly podcast, an audio podcast about this, but it's about food and body image. And I know that we've talked a lot about this on my shows in the past, where we have a lot of young listeners that are checking out our show, and they might be just out of high school or college, and getting into Hollywood. I know that their body image is a big deal, and I know that what you eat and so forth is a big deal as well if you're going to be an actor or a singer, anybody in the public eye. But talk about that. Has that kind of evolved over the years where back in the day you had to be a certain body image or body type? Is that improved over the years where people aren't kind of held to that standard, or are we kind of still held to that standard in Hollywood?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, which is that of a Gen Xer who grew up during a time when there was, Kate Moss and this very, like when I was a teenager, the term heroin chic was popular, which is so crazy to think about today that would be a phrase that people were embracing. And so there was also the trend was towards low-rise jeans and showing your belly and looking a certain way, but acting like you were one of the guys and you ate a lot. There's Something About Mary was a very popular movie back then. So I know I'm dating myself, but at the same time, this was I grew up in New Jersey. We were talking about this before you started recording, during the time of metal bands and hair bands and women who were literally just there to be hood ornaments. Yeah. And so because of this, I think that there was a strong message that we just had to accept that looking a certain way was how you worked. And for sure, when I was just starting out in the industry in my 20s, there was a definite pressure that was not only coming from the people who were hiring you and helping you get work, a la agents, managers, casting directors, producers, etc., but it was coming from the fans as well. The very first movie I ever did, I played a ballet dancer. And when I lost all the weight for it, that's how people saw me. And people saw me at a much lower weight than I normally was. So when I gained the weight back, people were shocked. People were not happy about that. And these were fans who wanted the fantasy still of the ballet dancer. So when I started the Actor's Diet, it was a food blog originally. And this was back in 2009. This was before there were cameras on phones. So when I stopped to take a photo of what I was eating, people thought I was nuts. Like they really were like, what are you doing?
So common, right? Yeah.
I know. But back in the day, it was not cool to look at your food and photograph it and look at it as something artistic. But for me, I started the blog during a time when things in the industry, I mean, my entire career has been a series of ups and downs and lulls and years where I'm working constantly and then years where it's just completely dead. And this was one of those times when it was very dead after a very high. And my eating disorder, which manifested in the form of binge eating, which is when you eat a lot of food, but you do not purge it through through diuretics or exercise or vomiting.
Sure.
But because I was so confused about both, do I have an eating disorder? Is this an eating disorder? Where, like in my family, this seems like we do this every Christmas and Thanksgiving, like we just eat a lot of food, but I just felt the need to constantly soothe myself through food. And I was being told that I was not going to work if I did that. So during this very low time, it was when I was coming to terms with my eating disorder, and I was also at the time trying to get pregnant. And so I was really just coming to terms with myself and my body and wanting to have a sense of like, not control, because that's what eating disorders are about, but an acceptance. And so I started the blog because I wanted to not feel ashamed of what I was eating. I didn't want to feel like I was hiding. And so I found it to be a really creative outlet for me, where I got to write, I got to photograph, I got to share, I got to have immediate feedback from an audience. And I thought it was going to be career suicide, because you have to remember at the time, there was no social media.
Right.
Blogs were just blogs. So like, I felt like if I was to say, hey, I have an issue with food, I have an issue with craft service, I have an issue when you have like a lot of food around, that people were just not going to hire me. And instead, what I found it was that it really opened me up to be able to talk to people in a way, as a human way, instead of just being like, business. Instead, suddenly we were talking about restaurants and we were talking about recipes. And suddenly I was able to channel that obsession, that very unhealthy obsession with food, into a healthy one.
Yeah.
And I had the blog for 10 years. I had already been what I consider to be recovered for several years already. And it just reached a point where I was like, I don't think I need to talk about my journey anymore. I feel like I've been on it and it's a part of my life, but it's not the part of my life anymore. So I keep the podcast going purely for two reasons. Number one, because I know it still helps people.
Right.
And number two, because it keeps me in touch with I changed the format from interviewing people to just talking with my best friend, who she's a holistic health counselor. And so it's really a chance for us to catch up once a month, because our lives are so busy, but it's also a chance to sort of honor that part of me that will never go away. It's not like you're cured from an addiction like that. So so that's a huge part of my life, but it also introduced me to this other form of storytelling, of sharing my own life. And it's why I continue to write and blog and create content, for lack of a better term, because I think that there's just so much downtime as a performer and as an artist. And there are certainly people who like to not share their personal lives and keep that separate. But for me, I found that that's something that I really enjoy. And so I like exploring it. And it's a strange thing as I get older, because the technology changes, the algorithms change, the attention seeking changes, and my relationship with all of that changes as well. But at the end of the day, it's storytelling. It's storytelling in the same way storytelling is with a movie that I sit down and write, and it takes 3 years for it to finally come to fruition. At the end of the day, it hits some of the same bells and whistles for me.
Yeah, and I think it does help other people as well, and I find that to be the case when we talk about serious issues on my show. People will give me feedback like, "Hey, that really helped me. I was experiencing the same thing." So you just don't know out there who you're helping, and I find that to be the more open we are with our own past and with our own struggles that we deal with. I think sometimes some other people think, well, I thought I was the only one dealing with that, and I'm not. So I think it really does help people. And that was my next question, getting into the, you're a writer, producer, director, and I know that, the business has evolved, the past decade or so, where there's more females in those roles, like the producer roles, the director roles, and the writers. And do you think that helps tell some of these stories from a woman's point of view, to have, more, like I said, more writers? I don't think we are where we should be yet, but at the same time, do you feel that that's helpful to that Hollywood is becoming more of a female driven industry with the storytelling piece of it and directing as well?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely gotten better, but you're right, it is not anywhere near where it needs to be. I've definitely seen firsthand the just the hypocrisy that comes from saying that you want things to be a certain way and then not actually carrying it out. But that said, I feel like the freedom to find community and find other like-minded people is strong. It's a lot less, you feel a lot less alone trying to figure out how to do this. You definitely see examples and definitely have community. There's definitely communities. That doesn't make it any easier, but it does help to sort of for you to cheer one another on. I do think that you hear this a lot, that the entertainment industry is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And transitioning into my role behind the camera is definitely a completely different beast than being in front of it. And it's just something that it takes a lot longer. It also feels a lot more personal. And the bandwidth that I have as I get older, but also just physically, emotionally, all of it is just constantly changing. And it's really interesting because I find myself at different times of my life, especially as the world keeps changing, willing to do things sometimes and not willing to do them other times. And it's a lot easier when you're an actor and someone literally just tells you what to do, and and that's it. Like, that is your job, to be given direction and carry it out the best that your interpretation is. But to be the person who's thinking of how to take care of all of that, sometimes life does not allow for that to be the situation. And I think, had I been younger, had like the situations been different at a different time in my life where there's less drama in my personal life or, other factors coming in, I probably would have jumped in with a lot more gusto as I do now. So I think now is like a very interesting time because people, the same way young women have different images that they're seeing to tell them what's right and wrong about their body or what they think and how they view themselves, that same thing is happening mentally. And so they're seeing completely different role models as I was seeing growing up. So, I mean, it's really exciting, and really, really humbling also, because they're also my colleagues and peers, people who are much younger than me. Like, I'm learning just so much from the TikTok generation, it's
Yeah,
like
me too.
nuts. It's so crazy and so cool. And I love it. It feels invigorating.
Hey, it's Dave from the Stage Door Show. Have you ever wanted a digital business card that would speak for you? Well, let me introduce you to TalkingVCard. Imagine this, a business card that doesn't just sit in somebody's wallet, but actively introduces you, shares your latest work, or even a special message. That's what TalkingVCard is all about. It's modern, environmentally friendly, and has been an absolute game changer for networking in this digital age. Now here's the most exciting part. For a limited time, you can get lifetime ownership of your very own TalkingVCard for only $99. Plus, to ensure you're maximizing its potential, they're offering a free consultation to help supercharge your brand. As many of you know, TalkingVCard is a proud VIP sponsor of our show, and I've been using it personally. The feedback has been absolutely amazing. For everyone tuned in right now, if you're looking to make a lasting impression and elevate your brand, I genuinely recommend giving TalkingVCard a try. There's a unique link on our show notes that'll take you straight there. And remember, maybe the next voice somebody hears from a digital card will be yours. Stay creative and stay connected. TalkingVCard. Yeah, I think, I talk about social media a lot too, because I think it's really changed the game when it comes to entertainment, because when and I get a lot of pushback on this as well. But my thought is that, we're becoming a TikTok society where, you're scrolling through and you're watching maybe 30-second, videos, minute videos, then you scroll to the next one. And it's almost, kind of making us, programming us to only watch these short little clips, and to sit and watch a 2-hour movie. It's I find it challenging sometimes, even for myself, who grew up watching, movies. And now I'm like, if it doesn't hook me in the first, 10, 15 minutes, then I'll move on to something else. And I really kind of blame social media, for that, because of how it's kind of programmed my brain to only watch short little, clips. And do you find that to be the case, or?
Oh, for sure. But I also find myself almost like overstimulated when I watch certain movies. Like I went to see Spider-Man, and I was almost like Into the Spider-Verse, the most recent one. Right. I 10 minutes in, I was like, this is too much. This is too good. The colors are too good. The animation's too good. The acting is too good. The music is too good. The graphics are too good. Like it was all happening so fast. Yeah. And I was like, and I knew it was like a, I don't know, 2.5 hour movie or something. And I looked at my watch and I was like, oh no, we still have 2 hours and 10 minutes left of this. And I really needed to take a moment and do some deep breathing, because I almost felt like it was too much. I don't know if that's, I don't know what that is, but after I was able to just calm myself down and not get too caught up in it, I was able to relax. And then by the end of it, it like ended on a cliffhanger. And I was like, what happened? How did this time just fly by? Yeah. So like, it is interesting, because I do think there's just so many choices now. It's like sitting in a diner, opening a menu and just having everything there. It's overwhelming sometimes. But sometimes you want that. Sometimes that's really fun and you're totally in the mood for that. But sometimes you want to go to that place that just has one menu, 4 things, and they do it really well, and that's it. And I think there's a freedom to that that's really amazing that we have. That's like feels luxurious in a lot of ways, but in another, I don't know if it's because I know that there's another way. Life was another way once upon a time, and I'm longing and I'm nostalgic for it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Because I grew up. 87 is when I graduated, so right in the heart of the 80s and the music and just all that. And I just look back at those days and how great they were. And we didn't have cell phones and social media. I think we barely even had electronic typewriters back then. But it was just an amazing time. And, I just, I think the generation that's coming up now that basically had all these luxuries when they were growing up, they'll never know what it's like to go out to the park with your friends and be safe and play and, play whatever ball we're playing. And nowadays it's just it's a different world. So,
It
But
is a different world.
yeah, but I know that you've had recurring roles in Shameless, All My Children, Grey's Anatomy. Out of all the roles that you've played, I mean, what was the most challenging role that you played, whether it was film or TV or stage? What was your most challenging role?
It's so funny as I'm thinking about, because All My Children was probably my first recurring role, and Grey's Anatomy was my last one, and they were both so challenging in different ways. I think what ties them together is this idea that I've been working on lately of like letting go of, which is, I think most actors can relate to this, most artists, most people can relate to this feeling of like when you book something huge and you think this is it,
Yeah.
and there's that pressure that and this hope, and it's super exciting because it's a big deal, and it is a big deal, and it's wondering, can I rise to this occasion, and what is this going to do, and will I fail, will I pass, like all of these feelings, and it's really like a rush, but it's also so difficult to process that. And so I definitely felt that with All My Children, because at the time I was dealing with my body image stuff. So it was definitely like, how do I look as skinny as all the other people and know my lines every single day? Because the lines change so quickly and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Whereas like, several decades later, booking Grey's Anatomy and also not having the body image stuff at all anymore. But then again, being like, oh my God, these lines are medical jargon. I can't even look at blood. Like now I'm going to have to like do surgery day one. And it was, it's a different type of pressure, but at the same time, it was, I think, this feeling of like, oh my God, this could be something. This could be it. And in the last, I'd say 2 years, I've really come to terms with this idea of like, what is it? Yeah. What is it? Because I've had a lot of really, really great moments in my career, really stellar things that have happened. And I've watched a lot of my colleagues and friends become superstars, like huge, huge, huge stars. Right. And I've watched other people, I don't mean to get dark, but I've watched people really fail.
Yeah.
In big, big ways.
Yeah.
And they're not different people.
Yeah.
They really aren't. And it's not like someone having a job, because I know some really big people who've had huge jobs that also have failed, in their hearts. So this is all to say that it's not that I'm trying to erase that pressure, because I don't know if that's possible, but I've been trying to talk to myself differently and to accept that each win, each moment is a moment that is cause for celebration when I'm able to overcome certain challenges. And at the end of the day, it's a job. It is a job. And it doesn't define who I am, and it doesn't define how I interact with anyone, whether it's somebody who I'm talking with at the grocery store, who has never seen me in anything, or if I'm talking with someone like you who's interviewing me, who does know my resume, or I'm just talking with my husband or my dog, like I'm still the same person. And so remembering that has been really important to me, because I feel like the challenge comes from trying to live up to this expectation that I found in my 4 decades of doing this is not really ever going to be satisfied.
Right. Yeah. And just like you said, staying grounded, I think, is one of the most important things that I hear from almost everybody that's ever been in any kind of, TV work, film, on a stage. And, to stay grounded and to stay who you are, no matter what, because I think it's a series of successes, to be a successful actor doesn't mean that you've been in a million big things. It could be one big thing that you've always had your eye on, or maybe, just be able to sing when you couldn't sing before. Maybe, I think success is what you make of it yourself. And I think it's a very personal thing. But I just, whenever I interview grounded people like you, it gives me hope for society as a whole, that the people, just because they're on TV doesn't mean they have a huge ego. It means that they just have another job to do, and they're doing their job, just like the 9 to 5 that I work, or my wife works, or whatever. It's just, you're still, you're a human being, and you just have a different job title, and it's refreshing to hear those kind of answers. So I appreciate that. Just as as a person who does interviews, it's just, you're grounded. And that's an amazing, for me to interview somebody like that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then the other thing is, besides being everything else, you're also, the writing these newsletters. Cause I want to point everybody to your website, because it's amazing, because you have a lot of different things other than just the Actor's Diet, podcast. You also have Gen X Taste, which is a beauty, fashion, and lifestyle blog. And you do for women over 40, the Yellow Pages. So, talking about Asian films and music writing and other inspirations. So, talk about that, is I think you really enjoy writing. So talk about what our listeners can go to your website and see all these great newsletters that you do, and kind of get immersed in some of these different things that you have going on there. It's great.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I sometimes just do way too much. Like literally today, I launched a new podcast for the Yellow Pages with Michael Sun Lee, one of your past guests, who introduced us. And I feel like all of these things come about very organically and naturally. They don't come about because I'm thinking, "Ooh, now I'm going to be a successful podcaster." Yeah. I mean, or if I have a newsletter, I'll monetize. And even with my Gen X Taste, which is a beauty and lifestyle blog, and I do get like a lot of free makeup and skincare sent to me, it's never been something where I'm like, how do I turn this into profit?
Right.
Because, and that's not to say that I haven't had those ambitions in the past with other endeavors. I just know myself well enough that doing it for that reason, trying to amp up my SEO, or, trying to like figure out some way to, I'm not a business person. I know that about myself. So, for me, it's a way to artistically connect with myself and with my audience, and talk about things that I'm genuinely passionate about. But to be completely honest, the reason I started all of these things is because I have stories and passions that I want to tell, and I'm not being given permission to do them. I spent most of the pandemic writing, pitching, shows with very prestigious people behind them, basically working for free, and not having anything come from it. And it all had to be done so silently, so secretively. And I just felt like the payoff for those things, obviously, if you win, it's a big win, right? It's a life-changing win. But for me, I need to have smaller wins in my everyday life. Otherwise, it feels very empty to me. And for me, I don't mind putting out a newsletter that a handful of people see, because I need to know that as a storyteller, I'm not doing it to try to, I don't know, gain some sort of number. I used to do videos for BuzzFeed with my husband, where literally we'd put out a video and the next day 1 million people had seen it. Wow. And I would get stopped around the streets of LA, of people being like, I was just watching you eat a sandwich. Like, and that was exciting, of course, and really like funny and cool. But I went from that to like literally putting out a YouTube video and 70 people maybe see it.
Right.
And I just had to really check my ego, listen, the first movie I ever did went to South by Southwest. You don't see auteurs and indie filmmakers going to make a skincare video on YouTube after they've accomplished something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's like what are you doing? But for me, honestly, the reason I do it is because I have something to say, and I don't want the reason I'm not saying it is because I feel ashamed that the algorithm isn't allowing it to happen, or that like whatever connection I need to reach a larger audience isn't having that. Sure. If I can do that, and if it brings me joy, then how much greater is it going to feel when I hit that million?
Right.
If I ever hit that million again, I know what that feels like already. Doesn't really change my everyday life. So
isn't it funny though, when you walk around LA and somebody recognizes you from their phone or from from BuzzFeed?
I mean, we did so many Disney videos that still to this day, if you look up like Disney foods, my face will show up, and I'm wearing these little mini ears in them, right? So when I go to Disney and I wear mini ears, people will still stop me. But if I take the ears off, no one knows who I am.
You got to have the ears on. Yeah.
It is hilarious.
Yeah. My son works at Disney, and he's for the last 10 years has worked there, but he's a Disney fanatic, and he knows who voiced over like the most obscure character in whatever film. And it's just, he's a huge Disney guy. So he's a foodie too. And so he'll post a lot of reviews on the restaurants at Disneyland, Disney World, and everywhere else he goes. So it's kind of fun to watch some of the stuff that he puts on there.
I bet I would love to see his stuff. I love that
for
stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask you, I mean, for everything that you've done, I mean, is there one thing that you look back in your career and just makes you smile? What's the one thing that you look back on and say, wow, that was so cool?
I'd say it was the very first thing I ever did that made a splash, which was Saving Face. It was my first feature film that I ever did. Yep. And it was the first of a lot of things for me. And I will say that was a moment when I was like, this is it. And it wasn't it right away, but the slow burn that has happened over the last, 20 years has been so unbelievable. The fact that people still love this movie, and every year a new generation sees it and adores it. And we still sell out movies, and I have a unbreakable bond with my co-star, Michelle Krusick, that I will have for the rest of my life. I just feel so lucky that I have that. Like, if anything else, I have helped so many lesbians come out to their mothers. And I just know it just means so much to people. And it makes me so happy because, as I said, I played a lesbian ballet dancer in that. And on the one hand, I had a lot of people who I helped with their coming out story, but at the same time, that was the beginning of my eating disorder, And so it represents this challenge in my life that I had to overcome that also was so helpful. And it just reminds me of this dichotomy of you can have both. You can be sad and you can be happy, and they're both happening at the same time, and that's okay.
Yeah, and everybody goes through it as well. And Saving Face, what an amazing film. You've been in so many things, but again, that was such a breakout role for you, and just an amazing piece of work, and award winning as well. So kudos to you and the whole team on that, because that was just an amazing piece of work. The other thing is, we have a lot of people who watch the show and listen to the show that, again, are artists themselves. And, I always ask my interview of, what kind of advice can you give somebody just starting out? Like somebody, like I said, just maybe looking for a college to looking for a theater program, or somebody that maybe wants to get into TV, film work. And, they're just at the very beginning, and they don't have anybody around them. So I guess what's your biggest piece of advice to somebody like that, that would stick with them?
I think my advice would be to at least try and do the thing that you want to be doing. There's so many people who are like, I want to be an actor, and they've never acted.
Right.
You need to get on a set and know what it feels like to sit and wait in makeup for 12 hours and then
Yeah.
not even be on camera, and then do it again and
Yeah.
again and again. And you have to know what that feels like and know whether or not that's something you want to continue to do. Because there's a lot, any job has its crap, right?
Right.
So you have to know that you enjoy the crap, not enjoy the crap, but that you enjoy it enough that you can put up with the crap,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Otherwise, what is the point? Like, if you don't even like being on set, and if like acting breaks you out into a cold sweat, which it will, but if you can't push past that and get to a point eventually, which takes time and experience, to eventually figure out, oh, we can have a relationship or not, you just need to try that. And just because one thing doesn't work out for you doesn't mean that another form of that a similar type of storytelling might not work out for you. You know, like I, for a long time, was food hosting, and I had no idea that talking to a camera about food was something that I was not only good at, but like very passionate about. And
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have felt comfortable with that had I not stepped out of my comfort zone and done that. And yeah, I just think that there's like a lot of opportunity these days. It's really exciting. And if I could get to the point earlier on to not care about what people think, which is a really hard thing to place to get to,
Hard for everybody, yeah.
earlier on, I think I would have probably been able to be a little more, I'm pretty prolific, but even more prolific in a way that might have helped grow my garden a little faster or a little longer. But this was my path, and the technology wasn't quite there, and I wasn't quite there when it was there, when it was that time. But it's happening now. There's just so much that you can do. And it's actually like, I'm always overwhelmed when I hear just how many amazing musicians are out there recording in their bedrooms, like amazing songs. And I'm like, who is this person? And they're a teenager in like New Jersey in the bedroom. And it blows my mind that is the case, because when I was young, it was literally a tape recorder, and that was not happening. That was not happening.
Unless you had a deal, right? Like a
Right.
record deal. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, that's great advice. And I know that that definitely goes a long way with my listeners. And I always end with this question, Lynn, and that's when it's all said and done. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to think of when they think of Lynn Chen?
I feel like a lot of the stories I tell, both on camera and off, are about pain, about struggle, about grief, about the hard things, about the boring things that are not sexy, that don't sell, that are not exciting and are difficult. And I would like for my legacy to be that I was able to help people feel their pain and have it not be something that they needed to get over or overcome, but to embrace and accept, and to allow it to morph into something beautiful. Because everything I've ever created, everything, the podcast, my movie, Gen X Taste, it has all come from a place of struggle and pain and grief that I've turned into something that I know will bring joy to people. And that's what I want people to think of when they think of me.
It's amazing. It's very powerful too. And thank you for that. And just thank you for all the amazing work that you've done over the years. And we can't wait to see what's down the road here. Hopefully this strike ends sooner than later with the writers and the actors, and and everybody gets what they're asking for and what they want. But I just want to let everybody know again, lynnchen.com, lynnchen.com. You got to go check her website out. It's actually a renowned website. A lot of people love going to your website, and a lot of great reviews on your website as well. There's a lot of great things to look at. So everybody, please go to Lynn's website, check it out. And again, Lynn, just thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show tonight, and best of luck to you in your future, and you're always welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. You too.